Unfortunately, we do want it to be taught in schools, but if the teachers, don't understand financial literacy, how can they teach it? So we are the ones going into those schools.
We are back with Mike talking about all the financial education that he's actively helping people in. And my curiosity, Mike, is as we look towards a bigger and brighter future and we think a little bit out into the distance, what are some of the trends and things that you're seeing, whether it's in the mortgage industry or things that are being talked about as people are looking to buy homes in the future? We know that the idea or the American dream of homeownership is seemingly getting further and further out of reach for a lot of people. So, how are we combating that in the future? Is technology going to help us? What are the things that are going to help people be able to figure out how to get into a home as the world progresses around us?
Great question. So typically, I like to start with a statistic that 43% of first time homebuyers believe that they need 20% or more as a down payment in the United States to purchase a home. And obviously, that couldn't be further from the truth. However, that takes professionals like myself and just the whole real estate and mortgage industry as a whole to combat what the media is putting out there. So I think a lot of the future is education, and one of the things that, not that I like anybody losing a job, but we lost 37% of loan originators that didn't renew in for 2024, and the stats are showing right now we may be under 100,000 uh, licensed loan originators in the country by the time January of first of next year comes around. So what that says and what that means to home buyers is that a lot of the people that are staying in, especially independent mortgage bankers like myself that are backed, I'm backed by American Financial Network, is a lot of those people that are staying in have to have the skills. It's not this very transactional, there, of course, AI is a component, and I'll hit on that next. But the bigger thing is that a lot of the professionals that have stuck it through are professionals who talk about a lot of the stuff that I talk about, right? Where a lot of your transactional and maybe people that just didn't really have the financial literacy um, didn't make it, right? Now, that is a benefit to the client. Again, I don't wish any bad upon anybody, but there was a big cleansing in the mortgage and real estate world. So, to me, a lot of that education um, is going to bring back some hope to Gen Z. We're seeing a lot of dual and triple income people getting together to make housing more affordable.
Mm.
And like you said, I mean, we've got a new administration coming in, and I think the goal, not there's so many policies, but I think more so than anything is that the focus is going to be helping create and earn more income to. You can't, because housing, you're not just going to suddenly magically make it affordable, even with lower rates that those 2% rates it's not going to come back. We call them COVID fantasy rates. So I'd love for them to come back. I just don't think the economy can sustain that. But the AI is allowing a lot of people to so people. I was on a podcast like a year ago, and they asked me which home buyers do you see that have the most success, and I said it's the ones that come to us 6, 12, 18 months beforehand and we're properly allowed, allots enough time for us to properly put a game plan together, hence the word mortgage planning, because there's going to be a lot of time to educate around credit, around, you know, why the income may not suffice for what they're looking for, and making sure they're making smart decisions for that. I don't believe I'm starting to see a lot of maybe underwriting and some mundane tasks that AI is really starting to take over on. But where it's helping people like myself is a lot of those top of the funnel people that are very far out in their mind. I think human beings have a challenge with what's called depth perception, and
Mhm.
we think something is way further than it actually is. So they may say I'm 18 months out, but they don't realize they're saying 18 months because they're trying to save up for 20% down, where they don't realize that there's a 3% down, or a 0% down. Not that I'm a fan of down payment assistance. For the right person, it makes sense. But a lot of in my opinion, affordability is not going to come from, you can't start decreasing home prices, because that's not how it works. People are going to continue to start paying higher for homes. Now, the future, and I'm gonna kind of go further out. I think eventually it'll balance out, but I think we are probably 20 years away from that. And the reason that I say that, in 2019, I did a presentation all over the country, was called "Bulletproof Your Buyer," and why we had the 2008 crash. People have all sorts of theories of why it happened, but at its core, what really happened was, if you backed up, I think the average first time home buyer is now jumped up all the way to like 37 or 38 years old. But at that time, it was 32 to 33. Well, you back up that many years from 2008. Well, that's when Roe v. Wade was put into place. So what started to happen was there was a degradation in birth rates all the way through 2008, and builders never stopped and thought, hey, wait a minute, we're going to have a massive surplus of homes when we get to that. Sorry. When we get to that, we're going to have a massive surplus of homes when we get to 2008. And that's what caused the crash then. Well, now, with families having less children in general, I believe that the amount of homes, because at the end of the day, it's a supply and demand issue, is really what is causing the unaffordability. I believe that in 20 years, we should have caught up with the now degradation of birth rates again, but the slowdown in building, and those two will meet again. I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe in the next 20 to 30 years. That's one of the things. Another thing, we've got the largest transfer of wealth going on right now in our country. I think 2.3 trillion in commercial notes coming due. We're going to see a lot of malls, office, skyscrapers, a lot of those converted into housing, and that's not going to fix it, but that's going to help a little bit. So I think that's something, the 2.3 in notes coming due is more so in the near term, and what's going to happen more in the next 5 years, where the balancing of supply and demand,
Mhm.
I think we're about 20 to 30 years out.
It's interesting because I could see AI being helpful for developers and people who own buildings like that, trying to figure out, okay, how can we use AI to determine highest and best use given our market climate in a given geographic area? Because the value of a property is based on highest and best use. And if it was commercial real estate or leased bays, but now so many stores and businesses are operating in a more digitized version, they don't need that same larger space. Amazon's delivering everything into your house, they're putting it in your fridge the same day. The guy just walks in, hey, Amazon, here we go. I'm going to put your stuff away in your fridge. Like, it's that type of an environment. The need for some of that commercial space doesn't exist necessarily the same way. Now, granted, if we bring back a lot more manufacturing, a lot more of the rebound of kind of the American blue collar worker class, and giving more of those opportunities, that may change. But it's not going to change in all markets. It's going to be selected markets. So I can absolutely see that conversion, and we're seeing similar things likely taking place in Canada. And so it's very interesting because that will take off pressures from housing demand and the birth rates. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people don't realize that there's a population issue taking place, and both U.S. and Canada have a similar problem because people are having less children. The real result of that is the only way to maintain the population base is either through migration, immigration, or we just need to start having a lot more babies. And it doesn't seem like that trend is happening. I don't think AI is going to fix that either. I could be wrong. I'm not sure how that would happen, but I'm open. Whatever. So I do think that there's definitely some unique challenges there. But one thing you mentioned earlier in our conversation, Mike, was also about longevity risk. And with the advent of increased technology, Peter Diamandis, who created Abundance 360 and the X Prize, he's a futurist and he's very focused on trying to figure out how he can live to 700 years of age. Now that's a little bit out there, but he says, what does the technology need to be like to be able to do that? They talk about a singularity event where you're at a point where every year that you live now adds a year onto your life. And that's something that's becoming ever present with the advent of the modern technologies taking place. And so it's a fascinating environment to be in. And how does that affect mortgages and home buying? Well, I really appreciate how you brought in a long term thinking. You brought in things like the population gap. As well as the market demand, and giving some more macroeconomic view on what a lot of people are just looking at micro level. How do I get into a house? And so, what I'm hearing you say is that the opportunities exist. They might be out there for a while. There's better deals in lending than you think. Go and get a mortgage plan together so you can see how you can get it done. Get yourself educated and don't put off to tomorrow what you can work on today. How did I summarize all that for you?
You know what, man? You have a job with me. If you ever change careers, we want you.
Sounds great. Mike, this was a ton of fun. Thanks for being with us and providing all this incredible value today. Thanks for being an ambassador for financial literacy for the youth of tomorrow, for Gen Z, and for all the help and the people you've put into homes. We appreciate it. And for those of you tuning in, stay tuned to next week's episode where we continue to unpack the incredible innovations and challenges that entrepreneurs are overcoming so that they can make a bigger and better, brighter future.